Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Farley Art Gallery for Lunch and Learn. It's generously sponsored by the Farley Mackay Art Foundation and TD Bank Group. My name is Ian, him, the Farley Education and Research Administration Assistant and host for today's webinar. Closed captioning has also been turned on for everyone. The Farley Art Gallery acknowledges the Anishinaabe, Wendat Nuancio, Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations, and their commitment to the stewardship of this land. We acknowledge these communities encircle the north, west, south, and eastern direction, and share the responsibility with the caretakers of this land to ensure the dish is never empty. To restore relationships based on peace, trust, and truth, the Farley is committed to enhance understanding, partnership, and reconciliation. Visit nativeland.ca to learn more about the land you live on, the history of the land, and what you can do to contribute to a better future. Today, we welcome Holly Ward and Kevin Schmidt. Holly Ward is an interdisciplinary artist working with sculpture, multimedia, installation, architecture, video, and drawing as a means to examine the role of aesthetics in the formation of new social realities. More recently, Ward's practice seeks to develop artistic engagements with non-human entities and ecological systems in a future-oriented practice focused on sustainability and holistic adaptation to a rapidly changing natural and cultural context. Holly has produced solo exhibitions at Artspeak, the Morris and Helen Belkin Gallery, the Kelowna Art Gallery, Or Gallery, YYC Gallery, Republic Gallery, Volta 6 Basel, and others. She has participated in group exhibitions in Canada, Chile, England, Mexico, the US, Norway, and South Korea. Publications include Plant Peasanthood, volumes, Every Forces Evolves a Form, and for now, on Holly Ward's Persistence of Vision, a critical essay in Jeff Derksen's After Euphoria. Her work has been collected by the Vancouver Art Gallery, Fogo Island Arts, and Scotiabank. Public commissions include Cosmic Chandelier and The Wall. Holly is an assistant professor in York University visual art programs. Kevin Schmidt practice spans sculpture, performance, photography, video, sound, and watercolor painting. It functions as a critical and subjective examination of spectacle. Guy Debord's phrase describing the totalizing effect of media and entertainment. His work renders the apparatus of spectacle visible by treating its physical footprint, designed to go unnoticed, as a sculptural material to be seen and considered, to thus review the ideological frameworks of spectacle and make experiential how it shapes our understanding of material, media, and the world. Schmidt's recent solo exhibition includes Public Address System, We Are the Robots and Reckless. A monograph on his practice was published by Black Dog Press in 2019 in conjunction with the Kamloops Art Gallery and Vancouver Contemporary Art Gallery. It was included in Documents of Risk and Faith, the premier exhibition of 2023 Photo Focus, Cincinnati's Photography Biennial, as well as La Biennale de Montreal and Site Santa Fe Biennial. His work has been collected by the National Gallery of Canada, the Art Gallery of Alberta, the Vancouver Art Gallery, and Fogo Islands Art. He is represented by Catriona Jeffries in Vancouver. In addition to solo practices, Schmidt and Ward have a long-standing collaborative practice that merges their artistic interests. The Pavilion is a geodesic dome structure begun by Ward as an artist in residence at Langara College in Vancouver 2010. Ward and Schmidt has transformed this into a living space for artistic research, relocated into a mountain valley outside of Kamloops, BC. This project was featured in articles in Canadian Art and 01 magazine in 2016. Eye of the Beholder is a sculptural set of cameras obscura built specifically for the Midnight Sun Camera Obscura Festival in Dawson, Yukon, a research project initiated by Donald Lawrence, head of the Thompson Rivers University Visual Art Programs. Research undertaken for this festival was exhibited at the University of Lethbridge Art Gallery, the Kamloops Art Gallery, the Odd Gallery, Dawson City, and is the subject of art research play, the Midnight Sun Camera Obscura project, published by the University of Lethbridge Art Gallery in 2010. Today, we have Kevin Schmidt with us. Holly Ward is unfortunately unable to be with us today. I'll pass the camera to you, Kevin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, and unfortunately, Holly is not able to attend today. So it's just going to be me talking about our collaborative work. So we've been collaborating together since around 2011. And I'm just going to go over a lot of the projects that we've done together. Collaboratively, we each have our own individual practices, but collaboratively, I think we're very much interested in the idea of art and life together and how to merge those, and also very interested in a sense of place and site with artwork. And there's going to be questions at the end. So if you have any questions, there'll be time for that at the end of the presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay. So our collaborative project practice started together with this project here, the pavilion, but it was first an artwork that Holly made for her own practice as a artist in residence at Langara College. So she built this geodesic dome as a site to program based on the utopian and dystopian aspects of the geodesic dome here on Langara College. Here's a here's a slide of the pavilion as it was on Langara, and then inside, over the course of a year, Holly programmed it with these different exhibitions. So this was one of the exhibitions in the pavilion, the dome, which was a utopian library, books that Holly had collected, talking about different utopian ideas with these hammocks that you could come into the dome and lie in the hammocks and read these books from this library. She also organized a poetry reading in conjunction with Jeff Derksen. So here's an image of that. You can see Clint Bergam reading some poetry inside the dome. And did a snap workshop with Natalie Perswitz, learning how to attach snaps onto clothing. And then the closing party for the whole year, she had a noise synthesizer ensemble play in the dome. So all of these different exhibitions and activities were related to the ideas of possibility and the kind of form, the geodesic form as a symbol for an alternative kind of space or ideas. So the Langara residency ended at the end of 2010, 2011, and some collectors approached Holly and asked if she wanted to put the dome permanently on some property that they had up outside of Kamloops, and so Holly did that. And over the years, I gradually started collaborating with her, and Holly and I made it into a living space. So these are images from probably about 2018 maybe, and you can see we've extended the dome, made it a little bit bigger, added a kind of a deck to it, put it up permanently in this mountain valley. And we've added a kitchen and bathroom to it, and the idea was to use it as a site for making artworks. In 2015, one of the artworks that we made also on this site nearby the dome was a screen in the landscape. So we worked with some local builders and cut down some trees that were in danger of falling down. They had died and they needed to be cut. So we cut those down and then worked with different people to make a kind of sculpture that would also operate as a screen to project film or video onto. Here you can see us working with the local builder Hank Inkster, and also our friend Isabel Powells came up to help us out. So we carved these trees and poles into these kind of shapes and used traditional kind of joinery technique to make this frame that we then put into place in front of this kind of mountain called Hanson's Knob in the valley there, and used an excavator, as you can see, to put the screen into place. And then here's a more kind of finished screen. This was probably 2016, and then a few years later, 2022, we finally got around to fabricating the screen to put into the framework. And we did our first screening, but of course it was during the pandemic and also a really bad fire season. So we did the first test. We called it Screening the Landscape Screen Test. And here are the slides from that first screening, which functioned as a land recognition or land acknowledgement, stating that this is Secwepemc-Ulu, the unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, who are the people who are traditionally and currently from that area, and saying that they're stewards and protectors of this land since time immemorial. So this was a screening basically for anyone who happened to drive by on the road that's nearby or just to the land itself, just to acknowledge it's the Secwepemc land and a statement that this is their space. So another then collaboration that we worked on was a project called Eye of the Beholder. We were invited by Donald Lawrence, who is the head of the art department at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops. And he invited us to participate in a research project and art festival in Dawson City. And the festival was all going to be about camera obscuras. So Holly and I went up to Dawson City and explored around and came up with an idea for our project there, which was to make two sculptural camera obscuras that would look at two different sites of gravel around Dawson. So here you can see a shot of Dawson City and some of the surroundings, and you can kind of see along the road there that there's a lot of gravel beside the river. And this gravel is all coming from the dredge machines that operated throughout Dawson, digging up the gravel to look for gold. So surrounding Dawson City are, you can see it going down the valley there and up in the top right of the image. There's just piles and piles and piles of these weird lumps of gravel, and these huge machines would go through. They would flood areas, and the machines would go through and sift through all of this gravel, looking for gold and depositing the gravel behind them. So we thought this was like, it's this kind of whole human altered landscape, all looking for gold surrounding this city. The site of this Dawson City itself was chosen by the Chandelier people because of this other site of gravel nearby the city. This is the other end of the city along the river. And there's a gravel slide at the other end of Dawson City it's called the Moosehide Slide. And the shape of the landslide there looks like a moose hide. And it was because of this, it's my understanding that because of this moose hide slide, that the site was chosen as an inhabiting place by the Trondheim in the first place. So the site of Dawson itself along the river is there because of this iteration of gravel. So what Holly and I did was we made this two-part sculpture, which are two different camera obscuras, which are made in the form of pyrite nuggets or pyrite geodes. So pyrite is like a geological formation mineral that is often confused for gold. It has these kinds of facets on it, but it's not gold. And so we made these two large pyrite nuggets, and we put them, one of them was looking at the Moosehide slide at that end of Dawson City. So aimed at that iteration of gravel, that culturally significant gravel there. Here you can see different shots of that Moosehide slide nugget from different, and then the city of Dawson below on the hill. On the nugget, you can see that there's a black dot on it, and that is a lens. Here's a closer up view of the lens. The back of the sculpture opens up so you can go inside and close the door behind you. And then inside the sculpture, the lens creates an image on this plexiglass screen. So you can see the projection of the light through that lens upside down, of course, because that's how the optics work. But you can see the Moosehide slide projected onto this this screen inside the camera obscura. That's the pyrite nugget. Here is the view of the other sculpture, the sister sculpture for that first pyrite nugget. And this is located in some of the dredge piles on the other side of the town. And if I go back here, I'll just go back really quickly. This overview of Dawson City, and right in the middle of the screen, you can see this tiny gold fleck, and that is the image of our other camera obscura, Eye of the Beholder pyrite nugget there in the middle of the screen. So here it is closer up. You can see that the gravel just piles and piles. It looks kind of like a parking lot, like a really big lumpy parking lot. You can see how the gravel's been deposited by the massive dredge machines at the turn of the century in these kind of lumps. Here's another angle of it. You can see the kind of lumpy worm-like gravel surrounding it. Here's a close-up. And again, you can go inside, and then inside, you can see a projection looking out at the gravel there. So we wanted to use this sculpture to sort of think about and examine the different cultural roles and materials that were important in a site of human habitation, and also ways of being on the land in this place. So that exhibition, the original exhibition here were these. This was for a festival that was on the longest day of the year, so 24-hour sunlight up in Dawson in 2016. So June 21st. And so it was light all day, and you could see come and visit the sculptures and see the camera obscura and think about gravel and gold and pyrite for that whole day of the festival. The work from the festival, we weren't the only artists in the festival, was exhibited on tour. It went to the Kamloops Art Gallery in 2016, and here you can see the installation of the pyrite nugget. And beside flanking it on either side are two photographic prints that we made inside the nuggets. Here's one. We exposed the image and took out the screens and exposed the photographic paper where the screens were. So you got this negative paper print of what the camera obscura was looking at. So this is of the Moosehide slide, and then this is of the dredge pile. And these two photographs were on either side, documenting what went on inside the sculptures. So that basically brings us to the reason for this talk, which is this exhibition called Lost and Found, which took place starting in the summer and fall of last year of 2023, and now is functioning as an exhibition in the Varley space. So Yan Wu invited Holly and I to make a public artwork responding to and activating the Rouge River Trail through Unionville. So starting in 2023 early, we went for some site visits and walked along the trail to think about what we would like to do there. And one of the things that we first experienced is as we were walking along the trail, we heard somebody practicing an instrument, a kind of a flute somewhere. We couldn't see them, but we could hear the sound of the flute coming along the trail. And it was an experience that we really enjoyed, and we made us think about how this natural or semi-natural or almost natural kind of space was used. It kind of reminded us of a project that I had done in 2011 for Nuit Blanche in Toronto. For this project, what I did was I used the budget that I had for producing my artwork to hire as many different buskers as I could. And for a 40-block length of Yonge Street, these buskers would just go along, space themselves along Yonge Street and busk. And they could have their hat out in front of them, but I also paid them a small honorarium for participating. All of these different buskers, to participate in the project and receive my honorarium, they had to play a set of, I think it was 8 different songs. And all of these songs were all songs kind of about a morning of regret after a night of celebration. So the kind of idea is that these buskers were playing songs that were about the next day, when Nuit Blanche would be over, and perhaps you were regretting some of the decisions that you made during the Nuit Blanche celebration. The buskers were free to perform the songs in whatever manner or style they wanted to, and there was no signage placed in front of them to identify them as official Nuit Blanche performers. So as you walk down Yonge Street, you would probably think, oh, here's some buskers who are trying to capitalize on all the crowds of Nuit Blanche. But as you pass them, you'd start to hear the same songs being played over and over and over again, and then realize that they were an orchestrated artwork, that they were an official artwork. So Holly and I decided to adapt this kind of idea for the trail along the Rouge River in Unionville. We used some of our budget to give a fee of $17 an hour for local musicians to practice. They had to practice along the trail between within an area, and they would get this stipend for practicing. There was no signage, so nobody knew that they were an official thing. They would just encounter them as people practicing along the trail. So this is Corey Young, who was practicing. And here's Samantha Twee. The musicians could choose where they wanted to sit and practice. And you would hear them playing whatever they chose to play. It was important to us that we not choose performers. This was not supposed to be a performance. It was more practicing. So the people doing this activity were just doing their own thing. And if you happened to cross them, you wouldn't necessarily know if it was for you or for them or for who. So it's a kind of ambiguous situation. This is Sean Breen practicing along the trail, and Selena Mao. And most of these images that of documentation, you can just see the musicians are just by themselves left alone, but some musicians, such as Kathy McWaters and Laurel Burnett, would choose to interact with people coming by. I know that Kathy and Laurel had a whole repertoire, and if people stopped and asked, which they often would with Kathy and Laurel would play what they requested if it was in their repertoire. So that we have a number of photographs like this of the musicians interacting with people coming by and getting to play and sing some of their requests. The other thing that we noticed about the Rouge River Trail in Unionville is that it's kind of, especially in the summer and in the fall when the weather is nice, it was a very widely used space. And it kind of was like a promenade, a place to sort of see and be seen as you walked along the trail, and both in the city and the trail. And to sort of play with that or address it, we thought it would be interesting to make some t-shirts. So we kind of were thinking about in public space, in spaces like this kind of promenade areas, how t-shirts are a very strange form of public address. Often the t-shirts will say something or other, but as an audience to it, you don't know if that's actually what the person wearing the shirt is trying to say, or if they're just quoting it, or if you're supposed to respond to it, or what your engagement with it is. It's this kind of ambiguous statement about what might or might not be going on with the person wearing the shirt. So we designed a whole bunch of shirts that would function in this way. I'm going to show you 4 different ones. The shirts are all on display now at the Varley Art Gallery. We did a lot of playing with the kind of message that's on the font on the t-shirt, the content of the message, and juxtaposing that with the font that's used to display that message, and then the color of the t-shirt. And often these things, the meaning of them is kind of mismatched. So this one we used sort of like heavy metal font to talk about this thing that says emotionally distressed in a very bright and cheerful kind of color. Here's a font called Comica Boo, which is a play on Comic Sans that's been shifted. It's to say perfection is an illusion in that kind of wizard-like purple color. Here, this one is, it's a kind of a mental health affirmation that's done in this sort of slimy font on these really kind of jarring neon colors. So the message of the font is kind of working against the sort of graphic treatment of the font and the shirt itself. So we had 14 different designs of shirts, and these were left in the welcome area of the Varley Art Gallery as a kind of t-shirt library, and you could go in and ask to borrow the shirts and use them and wear them to walk on the trail, which was done by a few different people. So here's another one of the shirts we designed. It says "Good Vibes Only" in a very sort of harsh, aggressive font, and these 2 women really liked this shirt and decided to wear it out on the trail. We also approached, we put out a call to different community groups to see if we could get these groups who were doing activities on the trail to wear our shirts along the trail. And so one of the groups that responded to our call was the Unionville Scout Group, and they went on weekly walks along the trail with their whole scout troop. And then the scout troop would wear all of the shirts. These shirts, there's 2 different green ones. There's one that says IRL, or in real life, and in a kind of computer font, and another shirt that says alive and sentient on planet Earth, kind of affirmation. The other group that we got to participate with us in wearing the shirts was a Tai Chi group from 105 Gibson Center. And this group would practice Tai Chi together along the trail, in the vicinity of the trail. Here they are in front of Markham, but they would move out into the park spaces and wear our shirts. they could pick whichever shirt they wanted to wear, and then practice their Tai Chi along the trail. And in return for doing this, these groups were able to make a charitable donation of $500 to the charity of their choice. In both of these cases, for 105 Gibson and the Unionville Scout Group, they are charitable, have charitable status, so that we were able to make a donation to the group itself. The idea with the shirts was kind of going off of this idea of the promenade, and we thought that just like the musicians practicing, people would be wearing these shirts, these groups of people would be wearing these shirts along the trail, and if you were encountering them often, if you were a local person, you would wonder, where are these shirts coming from, and what are they about, and are they an organized activity or not, or why, where are they coming from? So to create this kind of question for you about what you were seeing and what it was about. So the third intervention or construction situation that we made along the trail was a set of musical carts. I've been recently making these kind of portable carts to lug synthesizer as a musical accompaniment to different performances or videos that I was doing. So this is one sort of inspiration for this idea. But Holly and I have been interested in a very long time in tinkerers carts, these kind of mobile platforms that people bring around to do different things throughout a city. So here's an image of a tinker's cart from Brooklyn in 1936. And also the idea of the one-man band, these kind of sculptural apparatuses that are built by different people to take out and perform in public. This is a one-man band. I just grabbed this off of Wikipedia. It's of Jeff Mason in New York City in 2012. So Holly and I built two different music carts. We made them out of kind of improvised material, and we built them on the platform of a dog stroller, the stroller you would take your dog out on. So we altered those and added these different musical instruments too. And the instruments were often based on improvised things, like in the front part there, you can see that there's these kind of hang drums that are made out of helium tanks. There's a xylophone, which is a stock xylophone, but also cymbals made out of mixing bowls, a kind of jug band made out of different beer bottles that are filled to different levels, so they make different tones when you blow on them. And then also a couple of sets of wind chimes. None of these things are tuned to each other or tuned to any kind of regular scale. So to play them, it meant you would have to improvise. You wouldn't necessarily be able to play a particular song with them. You would just have to make stuff up and experiment with them. And they're also, you can see they're quite fun and interesting looking, just like this kind of one-man band or this strange arrangement of stuff in the Tinker's Cart. So we, just like with the practicing musicians, we assigned a kind of stipend or fee of $20 an hour for musicians to take these carts out and practice with them. And different musicians would. Often they would sort of tuck themselves in out of the way areas so that they could just sort of play with them, for themselves and not be in a kind of more performative space or language. So if you came across them, you would wonder what this instrument was and what they were doing with it in this space. Who is it for? Why? You wouldn't know. There's these different things. You'd have to make up your own reasons for it because it wasn't given to you. Here is Lucas and Rich Fant playing, and each of the cart performers, it was up to them how they improvise with them, or if they wanted to interact with passersby or people coming around. Some performers or participants, like Joe Trainer here, would, as you can see, like interact. Kids really love these things. They look like big toys and they love to play them and make noise on them. But other musicians, such as Victoria and Guillerme, I think. No, William Niccolo. They would actually try to make compositions. Victoria got really involved in recording loops on her iPad of the carts and then playing along with those. So different people would engage with them in different experimental ways in the space of the trail. So now, both of these, the carts, the drum and xylophone cart, and different aspects of the project have now been translated into an exhibition in the Varley Art Gallery. And we were interested here in not just documenting what we did on the trail, but translating it. And in a way, this exhibition is kind of the reveal for all of the activities that you might have seen happening along the trail that were not announced or advertised in any way, that you would just come across. And now if you come into the gallery, you can see, oh, I remember seeing that cart. Oh, that was an artwork. So this is the reveal, saying that what you saw on the trail was designated as something. On the back wall here is what we call Lost and Found, the call mural poster. And here's the closer detail. These are the calls that went out by email to the different community groups and to musicians in order to get them to participate in our project. So to get the musicians to actually play along the trail, or the cart players to play. So you can see the poster there. Musicians, calling all musicians and composers. Markham Public Art is, I can't read what it says, I can't remember, but to play a unique mobile instrument along the Ringier Trail in Markham. So we've made these posters as kind of a way they could have gone out, but they went out by email. It's a way to make it into a form, and that form kind of changes how you look at it or how you see it. These posters, the design of them, we were kind of looking at public art posters, say, or public health posters, say for the influenza outbreak in 1918, where the posters seemed to be very much about trying to get important information out as quickly as possible in a way that the design seems sort of strange. The fonts change, they are big all of a sudden or smaller all of a sudden. And so we were using this kind of urgency language in our own poster design. Also, just thinking about how concerts are advertised along public space in the street in these posters that are glued over top of each other, and seeing as a lot of the project was about music, that's what we were doing. We also kind of cribbing from a project of Holly's called Persistence of Vision from 2011. This is an exhibition at the Artspeak Gallery in Vancouver in 2011. And part of the project was to make these posters, which she calls ideational configuration. And they're all sort of titles or ideas or sentiments taken from science fiction, which are then placed out on the street with no marker of where they're from, and also placed in the gallery as this way of imagining another space that doesn't exist, but then somehow appears in public space in the street and then in the gallery. So this same idea of these posters is in the gallery here, but also manifested itself not along the trail, the Reach River Trail, in these calls and these ideas manifested in the public participation of the musicians and t-shirt wearers along the trail. Here's another installation view of the exhibition. We actually put park benches. The city of Markham gave us some park benches, the same park benches that are along the Reach River Trail, to place in the exhibition. And then we had a musician appreciation event in which we collected stories from all of our musicians about the experience of playing along the trail, and then made them into a kind of a newspaper that is free to take away, and also placed along these benches within the exhibition. I found these stories really moving when we had the event and heard the stories, because a lot of them are about how the stipend that we were able to pay these people really influenced them and helped them a lot that summer, and gave them the ability to practice their art in this public space, and it was really meaningful to them. Towards the end of the run of musicians playing outside, I wore a microphone and did field recordings walking by a lot of the different musicians, and I collaged these, or we collaged these in together into this kind of audio track that you can wear, put these headphones on and walk around the gallery space and hear me walking by these different practicing musicians along the trail in different spaces. This is Lost and Found t-shirt display. Holly and I made this kind of sculptural apparatus to display all the different t-shirts, because now the t-shirts are no longer in circulation, and they are part of a sculpture, an artwork. So they're hanging kind of like in a store display, but maybe more in a museum way that is, you can't touch them, and they're kind of spooky and lifeless, just hanging in the gallery. Here's another view of the t-shirts and the t-shirt display. In addition to this, the t-shirt display and the other pieces, the carts are there. We are still continuing to pay musicians to come and practice. So the musicians come into the gallery space. This is Victoria Tang again, and practice and animate the space with the sounds of their music. Here's Calvin Chan against the poster wall. And that is the end of the slideshow that I have. So perhaps, Ian, we could turn it over to our questions.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin, for the amazing presentation. We have some great questions here. The first one, looking back, what are some of the key takeaways or lessons learned from the Lost and Found project?
I think for me, one of the biggest things that I got, see, we approached the whole project as kind of like research. So we wanted to put these situations out into public space and encourage participation without any kind of preconception of what they would mean. I mean, now that the project has gone into the gallery, it's artwork, and it's kind of frozen, like the t-shirt display, as this kind of thinking about it as an aesthetic object in kind of an aesthetically framed language. But when it was out on the trail, you would pass these things and not really know what they were. And for me, a really big part of the meaning of that is in the trail news, the stories that the different participants told of the connections that they made with different passersby or people in the community coming by and really appreciating the music that they were playing. Like, even though maybe they were practicing and they kind of felt awkward and embarrassed and were making mistakes, the people passing by, or many people, appreciated what they were doing so much that they would offer them money. And then even though our participants were like, no, please, no, I'm just practicing, these other people walking by would insist. So to me, I think a really large part of what the project means or is about, or a takeaway, is just, I think, the desire and hunger for people to practice something aesthetic in public space, and people appreciate it. They really appreciate it, especially things that are not perhaps framed as something particular. Like, our exhibition is really framed as something, it's an exhibition, it's using exhibition language. But in public, when you could just stumble across something or come across the cart and someone's playing this strange thing, there's a kind of hunger for this kind of play, I think. That was a big takeaway for me.
Thank you. Next one, were there any unexpected challenges or surprise that arose during the implementation of the project?
Definitely. We had to tweak things because, as I said, we kind of approached it as a research project. So in the beginning, it was difficult to get the word out. So say for the practicing musicians, it was hard at first. Only a few people started, but then they shared by word of mouth that you can do this thing and get paid to practice. And then we got a bigger and bigger pool of musicians to go out and play. Getting people to go out and use the carts outside seemed to be more difficult because they're strange, weird things. And how am I supposed to practice, my repertoire if it's not an instrument that even has a Western scale on it? So what we had found is we had to increase the amount we were paying per hour. So we started at 20, and I think we ended up at almost 35 an hour to get people to use those. And once we started doing that, then we got more participants. So those were kind of challenges we had. And the t-shirts, also the library that we had at the gallery wasn't so known about. And so then getting it out in the groups started to get it more seen and activated outside. We were going to design another kind of apparel for other groups. But in collaborating with those groups, it became difficult because we wanted to do something a bit more wacky, and these running groups, say, for example, they didn't want to wear anything wacky. So it ended up just being the t-shirt. So there was this kind of negotiation, like we want to try to put these things out, and in the end, what we ended up were the t-shirts, practicing musicians, and the musical carts. But trying to get people involved took a long time, but then it started ramping up, and then the weather changed, and we had to sort of bring things to the inside.
Thank you. Here's another one. You say that you hope the people who participated in the project will finally understand it when they go to the gallery. What about those who were not involved or did not know anything about it before they came to the gallery?
I think this is fine. I think that because in the gallery, it's operating in this gallery language. It's like, here are the objects that were outside, that were activated as part of this other thing. The carts are still available to play. So you can go in and you can play the carts, and you can have that experience of play with that. You can also go in and look at say, the poster wall and think about how the form of something changes your experience of it. So you can still have all of these kinds of experiences in the gallery itself. It's just different than what happened in public space. In public space, it's a surprise, but in the gallery, you're going into the gallery, you already know what you're getting involved in, and you're having a different kind of experience. I think for me, especially, and Holly too, I think, we were very interested in how, when you see something, how you designate its value as an aesthetic experience. When you go into a museum space, you already know that you are going to something that's valued as aesthetic experience somehow. And we were interested in, if you didn't frame that and you come across it outside, what is it? How does that come across to you? How do you decide that something is, oh, this is really interesting or cool? Or do you just think that it's strange and weird? So I think that experience, we were really interested in the public art, or the outside part of it, and then bringing it into the gallery, thinking about how that translation into a kind of frozen gallery experience, what that does to something. And I think, so it's like a research proposition, and I think you can see that in the gallery because you can understand where it was and where it was coming from. The information is there. In the outside space, it was more running as a live experiment.
Thank you. Here's one. Do you have any advice for emerging artists about finding collaborators? Do you have any advice about making public art that the artists might feel shy about?
My experience of this, it was really, really important for me as an emerging artist in Vancouver in the late 90s to become involved in a scene. to find people who were like-minded. So for me, it was getting involved in the artist-run culture in Vancouver in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's where I found people that I would collaborate with, exhibit with. It was in that scene that I met Holly, and we've started collaborating now. So I think that's a really important thing. And likewise, then I would suggest like looking at artist-run culture here in Toronto or in Markham. Find the artist-run spaces that are in your region and start going to openings and start going to the events that they are hosting and meet people that are interested in the same thing. So that's something I highly recommend because that was my experience. Of course, social media is another place now that you can find this kind of thing. But I think for me, it was really important in person. Now, Ian, there was another part of that question, but I can't remember.
Oh, well, do you have any advice about making public art that the
Hmm,
artists might feel shy about?
yeah. So this is a tricky thing. And I think I I did take those musical carts that we made out in along the trail and I played them and I felt very shy and awkward because those carts they attract a lot of attention and that made me feel embarrassed. But I think, well, there's two ways you can approach it. One is if you make visual art or sculpture, the visual art or sculpture is not you, and you can put it in a gallery or in a space and have other people look at it and they don't know it's you. So this, in terms of public art, if you're not being invited by an institution, this means like guerrilla style, putting things out in space that nobody knows about until they come across them. Um, or in a gallery space, then the thing stands in and you don't have to perform. I was always scared about performing, but I still find myself like this talk always having to perform in one way or another. Um, I think finding ways to distance yourself from the audience, either you have a persona or you have an instrument that is between you, are ways that you can deal with your own kind of shyness or because it's attracting attention and you don't want to be the center of attention. But it is something that you'll have to deal with as an artist because there's always a sort of public facing part of whatever you want to do, even if you'd rather hide behind your sculpture or painting.
Next one, how do you hope the interactive installation of the Varley will impact visitors and their understanding of the project?
Well, I hope they would enjoy it. They'll enjoy looking at it. I think a lot of the project is about potential, what could happen in public space. I mean, the text of the posters are the call that went out in social media and online. But what that project is partly doing is talking about how public space has been used in the past. That's what the t-shirts are doing too, talking about your body in public space and its potential as a message. Um, so I think what we're trying to do is talk about the importance of public space and importance for messages, and that's in the exhibition. I think that comes across. It also was important to us that the carts, the musical carts, you can operate them. So you can go into the gallery and you can make up compositions. You can record them like Calvin Chan is recording his own practice session. So you can use it as a space for your own creativity if you want. And the t-shirt sculpture is there to talk about sculpture, to talk about the museum and what a museum does to artworks, but also as a potential, like it's an inspiration. You can make your own t-shirts if you want, and why not? You can, and they can have whatever message you want, and this is how you can also participate. So I think it's as an inspiration, but also as a tool for using to play and um, think about the value of putting messages out in public, but also I think about the value of community support for aesthetic endeavors. So for us to pay these different musicians to play and practice, it was very meaningful for them, um, and for us. And I think that this is another part of what we're talking about in the project.
Thank you, Kevin. We have one more questions and two comments. Last
Okay.
would be like, how would they understand it? I assume this is for lost and found.
How will they understand it? A lot of the meaning of the works is in text. So you would have to read the newspaper that's in the gallery. Markham Public Art is also putting out a book that is an interview with Holly and I and Yan, the curator. So a lot of this stuff that I've talked about today is going to be in a publication that comes out. In the museum itself, I think the meaning of these things, the slipperiness of content and the form that it's placed in, is contained in all of the different t-shirts and posters and the sculpture that now hold the t-shirts that are inaccessible to you. I think that meaning is all there for someone who looks at art and thinks about it.
Thank you. So this is a comment from Anik. I really like how some of the musical sessions in the gallery are announced, but some are not. It's very effective to hear the music even before you enter the gallery. It really brings the show to life.
Thanks very much, Anik. I appreciate that. I think this is, I mean, I think coming across something that's a surprise and not announced is really remarkable, and it's what we wanted to do along the trail and continue doing in the gallery, because I think so much of the content that we read or consume or come across is all managed for us. Like, okay, you're going to watch a movie now. Okay, this is what this is, and you're told. Everything is told and framed in a certain way, and we were really interested in trying to do stuff that was unframed and allowing participants to decide for themselves what it is and what it is about.
This is the last comment. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Ioli. Oh. As a frequent walker on the trail, I didn't realize we were taking part in an art in the making. I can appreciate it much more now that I know all the background. Thank you so much. Looking forward to viewing the final product in the gallery.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Hila. That's a really nice comment, and I'm glad that you now have this opportunity to see this other part of it. And hopefully, when you saw it in along the trail or saw some of these things, they were pleasurable to you and you found them interesting. Thanks very much.
No more question. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for everyone coming. I hope you enjoy our lunch and learn. Just to promote a bit of upcoming programs and events at the gallery, we have the Lunar Lanterns, Monday to Sunday, January 21st to March 17th. Lanterns hold a significant place in Asian festival, symbolizing new beginnings with the advent of the Lunar New Year. Collaborating with 6 contemporary Indigenous artists this year, the Lunar Lanterns in the Farley Art Gallery courtyard each tell us a unique story, casting a warm glow as we welcome the promise of a bright new year. Lastly, NLHL Tournament Week, Arts and Crafts. In honor of the 50th anniversary of the Little Native Hockey League and Markham's first hosting of NLHL annual tournament, join us to experience the Indigenous Design Lunar Fest lanterns in the Farley courtyard. Don't forget to step inside and engage in free hands-on activities. Then explore the historic and contemporary work by Indigenous artists and other talented creators on display in our exhibition spaces. Once again, thank you for coming to our lunch and learn. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks a lot, everyone.